Hello, my name is Jennifer Ottinger, and I'm a graduate student at the University of Southern Mississippi in the Library and Information Science program. Along with my graduate degree, I am also earning my Archive and Special Collection certificate. One of the requirements for this certificate is the completion of a practicum. I was really worried that the pandemic would make it difficult to complete this requirement because many of the libraries were closed to both staff and the public. Luckily, I received an email that was forwarded to me from the University of Mississippi describing how the university was looking for students in need of an archival practicum. They had an opportunity to complete a practicum virtually. The University of Mississippi wanted students to transcribe their digital collection in order to make the collection more accessible to patrons. Although most of their collection was already online, there wasn't any way to search for specific entries within the collection. By transcribing each item, a more searchable collection would be created. The University of Mississippi has four main collections. One is the Blues Archive, which started in 1980 when a large donation was given to the university by B.B. King, a visual collection that includes negatives and home movies, a collection of political papers, and their general special collection. The collections contain 100,000 rare books, 30,000 linear feet of manuscripts, 2,000 linear feet of items in the visual collection, and 70,000 sound recordings. Within the General Special Collection is a Civil War collection where I completed my practicum. The collection officially started in 1975. Almost 95% of the collection is from donations. Some of those donations have been from people that had connections to the university, while others had no connection at all. Items are donated from inherited collections, personal collections, and items that were purchased through eBay or other personal sales. It is also part of the Civil War in the American South collection, which is a shared collection from 37 libraries with more than 10,000 items. In 2006, staff started digitizing the collection and making the items available online. This is where my practicum came into play. My job was to read through digitized items, transcribing word for word what is on each of the items. These could be from manuscripts, documents, correspondences, bills of sales, and more. Once I had completed the transcription, I uploaded my document to an archivist who did a final check and then uploaded the transcription to the digital collection. If a word or document wasn't legible, I made note of it by placing the word illegible within brackets, letting the archivist know. I could also use these types of brackets to provide other notes to the archivist, such as if there were stamps on an envelope, if an item was out of order within a series of correspondences, or if there was damage to an item. Throughout my work, I needed to research historical handwriting as well as terms and certain named individuals in order to understand an item I was reading. Throughout my practicum, I also communicated and collaborated with the archivists, Dr. Jennifer Ford and Dr. Michelle Emanuel, and have taken part in Zoom meetings set up in order for us to become more familiar with the collection and understand the careers of archivists and special collection librarians. Most of the documents I have transcribed are surrounding Miss Belle Edmondson. She was born Isabella Buchanan Edmondson in 1840 in Mississippi. Her family moved to a farm in Tennessee that ended up being located between the pathways of both the Union and Confederate armies. This area was known as No Man's Land and gave Belle the opportunity to get involved with war efforts. Both of Belle's brothers were Confederate soldiers, and Belle became a great supporter of the Confederate Army. Belle used the idea that men didn't usually search women to her favor. She helped smuggle items such as supplies and letters to Confederate soldiers by hiding the supplies in her hoop skirts and near her bosom. If a letter needed to get to a general, Belle was usually involved. If a soldier or general was in need of an item of clothing, many reached out to Belle for help. After her role of smuggler was almost found out, Belle snuck back to Mississippi, where she spent the rest of her days, eventually dying in 1873. If you're interested in knowing more about her life and her legacy, you can read the book Lost Heroine of the Confederacy, The Diaries and Letters of Belle Edmondson. Now let's see some cool examples from this collection. These are some of the examples of the varying differences in handwriting. Some were very legible, while others were much more difficult. There didn't seem one type of handwriting, with many varying greatly. I imagine some of the conditions the soldiers were in might make it difficult to do some writings, but most of the items I transcribed didn't necessarily showcase harsh conditions. Although not all were written on the battlefield, I did read some that said they went to their captain's tent to write and hoped that their candle didn't burn out. It also struck me regarding the lack of writing mistakes. The writers didn't use any erasers or whiteout, yet most of the items were mistake-free. Not all of the quality was impressive. Some pieces didn't hold up well over time. Here you can see how difficult it would be to read the pencil correspondence on the left. And although I was able to read some of the ones in the middle, I was missing a large portion of the body of the letter. Some were difficult to read solely because of the style of handwriting, like the one on the right. This would be an instance where I would include the word illegible within brackets instead of the word as a note to the archivists. Many times, just by walking away from the work, taking a break, and coming back, I was able to make out a word I couldn't read the first time. During my practicum, I also came across writing styles that are no longer in use today. One of those examples is for the long S, which looked like an F for a P. This symbol, or letter, was used in multiple languages like French, German, Italian, as well as English. It represented the long S sound, or two S's that were used together. On this page, I put ovals around the words that had used the long S. The first one I circled is for success, and the next one, assurances. The third word I circled is kindness. I came across many of these long S's in the word Miss, such as Miss Belle Edmondson and Miss Hallie Rogers at the bottom of the page, but also in the abbreviation for Mississippi. Due to the frequency of these words being used, my eyes got used to seeing the long S. On this page, I circled happiness and passion, both of which use the long S. I also have underlined the hyphenated words. This is something I came across a lot in the correspondences. Hyphens went out of style with the word processor, but they were used a lot during Civil War writings. One of the reasons for their frequent use could be in order to use as much of the paper as possible. Not leaving any spaces helped you get the most out of each page. Creative use of space on the page was a recurring theme. Because paper and envelopes were expensive and difficult to get a hold of during the war, writers would use every bit of the paper before using another piece. These three show how writing over the top was common practice. This made for difficult transcription sometimes. The one on the left was a correspondence that carried on through 3 other pages, but returned to the first page to end the letter. The middle one was the most difficult to read. It has vertical sentences written over horizontal lines. It almost looks like a graphic piece of art rather than actual words. I wondered if the person originally receiving these letters had as much difficulty reading the letters as I did. Bell smuggled a variety of items at the request of many. There were many correspondences that were both from and to soldiers, generals, and family members asking for specific items such as paper for letters, hats, undershirts, and fabric. There were many receipts and bills of sale included in the collection. The first one has fabric and other sewing items, as well as ladies' hose, men's gaiters, a type of pants worn by men in the war, paper, and envelopes. There is also brandy for medicinal purposes requested, as well as cigars. The cigars were one of the more expensive items at $5 a box, but it did get crossed off this bill. I wonder if Belle ran out of money or changed her mind. But don't worry, according to another receipt I came across, she did end up buying cigars on another occasion. The bill on the right has some other items of clothing, as well as pocket knives, candy, cheese, molasses, and a kit of mackerel. This correspondence is from Belle's nephew to Belle and her brother Eddie. The nephew complains about his poor writing, which I actually think is pretty good, and he talks about a little pistol that she had sent him. He's in need of some cartridges for the gun and hopes that Belle remembers the number on the gun so she can send him the correct cartridges. Just in case she doesn't remember the number, he mentions sending a stick along with the letter that is the same size as the pistol so she can determine the size needed. I thought that was pretty ingenious. This slide shows some of the recipes I dictated. When Dr. Emanuel mentioned that recipes were part of the collection, I offered to do them right away. The top left one describes how to keep eggs over winter, and the bottom left one is a recipe for cordial. The top right one is for pudding and cakes, and the bottom right one, which uses laudanum, another name for opium, turpentine, and salt. This recipe could have been used to treat dysentery, parasites in animals, malaria, or even used as an enema. There were also many envelopes included in the collection. The addresses sometimes only contain the address near Memphis or care of a certain person. The stamp prices range from 1 to 10 cents, with postage being determined by distance to delivery. Shortly after the war started, the Union states stopped delivering between the North and the South. Before the South could create their own postal service, multiple express companies were created in the meantime to deliver mail, and they ended up hand stamping their own envelopes. The Confederate States finally created their own postal service, which raised quite a bit of money for the war. A few of the correspondences were handwritten explanations of transfer of land. These included mortgage stamps on the letter themselves. This was a way to show that a certain tax was paid for the transferal of the land. They were usually hand-canceled in order for them not to be used again, and they were written over the top with a date and initials. There were so many amazing pieces in this collection worth showing, but due to the size of the collection, we would have been here a while. Please take a moment to go to eGrove to see the collection in its entirety and peruse through pieces of the American history. A big thank you goes out to both the University of Mississippi and the University of Southern Mississippi for allowing me the possibility of taking part in this amazing opportunity through a virtual practicum. I look forward to using all that I've gained in the practical setting when I'm in my future career.